That is it for me. Thank you again for joining us. We are thrilled that you're with us. And I'm going to hand it over to Miss Anita Smith. Hand it over to Miss Anita Smith.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today at our Parent Academy session on how to become a DCPS volunteer. I am Anita Henry Smith, the Executive Director of Employee Support Services. I know the presentation that I will be going through, it does state Ms. Susan Thorburn. She is the Supervisor of Employee Support, and she oversees the volunteer unit for the district. Unfortunately, Ms. Thorburn was sick today, so I am just filling in for her because it is very important that we're able to get this information out to our volunteers. So I'm going to be making the presentation, and at the end there will be contact information for Ms. Thorburn and also her team if there are any follow-up questions or concerns related to the volunteer process. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started with our presentation today. Thank you. So how to become a volunteer with Duval County Public Schools. We welcome the volunteers to our schools because we do realize that the assistance of our volunteers is a vital part of Duval County Public Schools. Our volunteers are needed for many different types of ways, and they're also able to help our instructional staff, our schools, administrators to give students a well-rounded educational experience. Now, the district has had some major changes as it relates to the requirements for volunteers. In March of this year, the Duval County School Board approved a policy that would require our volunteers to also have a level 2 screening. In the past, volunteers were only required to have a level 1 volunteer screening, but with those changes to board policy in March of this year, we do have certain levels of volunteers that must be screened as a level 2 volunteer. So level 1 volunteers, they're always in the direct view of district employees, and they're never left alone with students. Some of the examples that we have are classroom helpers, book fair, health screening, and cafeteria monitoring. And again, a level 1 volunteer will always be in the direct view of district employees. Now, with the implementation of the second level of volunteer screening, which is level 2, and again, this was just implemented in March of this year, our level 2 volunteers actually undergo fingerprinting. Again, this was not done in the past because the level 1 screening did not require fingerprinting, but the level 2 screening does. So volunteers that may be out of the sight line of a DCPS employee must be fingerprinted. The fee for this service is $74.50, and the volunteer is responsible for paying that amount. Examples of some level 2 volunteers would be volunteers that are chaperoning an overnight field trip, chaperoning a field trip with small groups that may separate from DCPS employees, or chaperoning a small group field trip. So the example that I know we like to use often is, say for instance, we have a volunteer that is serving on a field trip, say to the zoo. And oftentimes when volunteers serve, students may be separated or divided in different groups based upon the number of adults that are there to assist. Well, there may be a time where that volunteer that has that group of students may not always be in the line or sight of a district employee. So that volunteer would need to be level 2 screened. So again, I want to reiterate the difference. Level 1 volunteers are always in the direct view of district employees, and they're never alone with students. Level 2 volunteers may be out of the line sight of a DCPS employee, and this is going to require fingerprinting. Again, examples of level 1 may be classroom helpers, if a volunteer is working in the book fair with district employees, health screening, and cafeteria monitoring. And level 2, again, would be those that may be chaperoning an overnight field trip, chaperoning a field trip with small groups, and they may have there may be the possibility of separating from a DCPS employee or chaperoning a small group field trip. So we do have visitors that are also one group of parents or individuals that may visit the school. So we have to try to differentiate between volunteers and visitors. Typically, when you think about volunteering, you really think about that this is something that may not necessarily be just a one-time occurrence. Sometimes visitors, it may not be a frequent occurrence. It may be one time. So we try to make sure that we differentiate to make sure that parents that are coming in just visiting, that if they're not seeking to volunteer, that there is a process that we also have for visitors that is going to be separate and apart from level 1 or level 2 screening. So visitor information, anyone present in a school building on a school day during school hours other than DCPS employees is considered a visitor. All visitors should report to the school's main office or security vestibule and explain the purpose of the visit and obtain permission for the visit. The visitor should always present a valid picture identification, sign in. Now, some schools, they do have an electronic manner in which visitors sign in, that they swipe their identification. And then you do have some schools that still require paper and pencil for our visitors to sign in. So either one of those mechanisms, a visitor must do, because there must be a record of who's on campus at all times and when they're there. Visitors also should receive a visitor's pass, which must be always worn and visible while on school property. Most of the time it's going to be like a little sticker that the school is going to print out, and it's going to show. Some schools will also be able to put on there where exactly you're going to visit, but you should always, as a visitor, have some type of identification, some type of indicator that you have checked in at the front and you do have permission to be on campus. All visitors to district property shall comply with all school board policies while on district property, and shall conduct themselves in a manner that is not disruptive, threatening, or abusive. So the main point of this presentation today is how to become a volunteer in Duval County Public Schools. So whether you're becoming a level 1 volunteer or level 2 volunteer, you must apply to become a volunteer with Duval County Public Schools. On the presentation, and again, this presentation, I am going to share this with the Parent Academy. There is a link that will take you to the site where you must register. Again, regardless if you're level 1 or level 2, you must use this link to register as a volunteer for Duval County Public Schools. There's a basic application that must be fully completed. Once that application is completed, you will receive an email with instructions for fingerprinting if you select level 2. So when you go to this application, you as the volunteer will be able to select if you're seeking to be a level 1 volunteer or a level 2 volunteer. So at this point is where you're able to identify which level of volunteer you're seeking. Again, you're going to receive instructions if you state level 2. Those instructions will give you next steps, and it also provides you an opportunity to be able to select what's more convenient for you to go to a location to have your fingerprints taken. You are processed and notified of your status. You may log into your volunteer profile anytime to check your status, update your information, or change your volunteer level. So I'm going to pause right there because we've always had many volunteers that were in our schools, and we are so appreciative of the parents that take, or the community members that take the opportunity to come in and assist us in the schools. So as I stated at the beginning of the presentation, our volunteers only had to be level 1 screened. It was not until March of this year when the policy changed, and then the policy was implemented effective July 1st. So what that means is we had parents or community members that were already registered to be a volunteer, but it would be level 1. So if you're already a level 1 volunteer and you make the decision that, hey, I'm going to chaperone, or I'm going to go on an overnight trip with my child, or if I'm going to be a chaperone on a field trip, then I need to be level 2 screened. So the only thing those volunteers have to do, since they already have a profile, is log back in to the volunteer portal, and then you can have the option to select if you're changing your volunteer level. So the process in implementing this, we wanted to make sure that it did not cause much disruption, especially for the parents that were already familiar with the platform that we were using. So you're going to use the same platform, but if you're selecting now to be a level 2 volunteer, you would simply go into your profile and update your profile from level 1 to level 2, and that will begin the process of you receiving all of the notifications and communications that you need to move forward to the next steps. So where do I apply? Again, the previous page had the link for the site where you apply to become a volunteer. We also have another website if you wanted to navigate that through the DCPS website. If you go to the main website and you select the departments, volunteer actually has a section under departments that will take you directly to the volunteer page. So on this volunteer page, as it is shown on the presentation, you're able to apply to be a volunteer. And we also have a document of frequently asked questions, because you can only imagine with the new process, there are many questions. And even as we have parents going through the process, there may be questions that we may not have addressed in our frequently asked questions. So this document is actually a living document. We try to update it, if not on a weekly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, to ensure that we're transparent and our volunteers have all the information that they need to successfully navigate the process. How do you check your application? So with the implementation of the level 2 screening, there is a little time period between applying and when the entire process is completed, because now the process is a little bit more extensive compared to the level 1 screening. So if you know there's a field trip that may be coming up next month or later down the line, we just request that if you want to be a level 2 volunteer or chaperone a field trip, that you allow about 3 weeks for your application to be reviewed, to ensure that you're processed in enough time for you to be able to join your student or your family member on this trip. So how would you know if you've been approved once you've submitted your request for level 2? You will receive an automated email from DCPS Volunteer Services. Volunteer application is pending, may be a status, volunteer application approval. Also, since we are using the same platform that we've used even with the level 1 screening, every school should have a volunteer coordinator. That coordinator should have access to the volunteer portal. So if you're at the school and you're seeking information to determine if your status has been completed or if your profile update has been completed, you are able to consult with the volunteer coordinator at the school, and they have access to go into the system, which the system is called Samaritan. Again, this is the one that we've always used to try to make this process, not as taxing or on the schools and also the parents, but this is the same platform that we've used even before with our level 1, but the school volunteer coordinator will be able to check your status for you as well. And you can also log into your existing account, and you can see your profile and the status of your profile on the left-hand side. So we have multiple ways for the volunteers to be able to check their status. Volunteer badging. So as I discussed with visitors, if a visitor goes to the school, they should always, the front office should always give some type of sticker, some type of indication that you're a visitor. And again, that has to be visible at all times while the visitor is on campus. Volunteers is a little different. We have badges for volunteering, and then we've come up with a way, since the levels have changed, to distinguish between a level 1 volunteer and a level 2 volunteer. These badges are produced at the school. So once a volunteer is approved, a badge should be printed by the school. Each volunteer level badge will show on the corresponding badge. So when a volunteer is in a school, there should be no question on what level of volunteer that person is. So if a volunteer is a level 1, then the badge should be purple. If the volunteer is level 2, then the badge should be orange. And just as a visitor needs to ensure that they're wearing that sticker or whatever indication the school is giving them at all times, the volunteer needs to make sure that badges are always worn and clearly shown while on school premises. So when badges are printed, you would definitely need to speak with the school to determine whether they're taking those badges up at the end of the volunteering opportunity, or if the volunteer is able to keep the badge. That is something that, of course, would be a decision that the school is going to make. But one good thing about the badges is there's an expiration date that will be included on the badge, and that expiration date provides information on whether or not that volunteer's status is still active. A level 1 volunteer, their status is active for 2 years before they need to renew. A level 2 volunteer, the fingerprints and status will be good for 5 years. So that is a major difference between level 1 and level 2 as well. Remember to renew, and I kind of jumped ahead, but level 1 applications expire every 2 years. So if a volunteer is level 1, they will get an email before their status is going to expire. They get the email and they're able to go again in that volunteer portal and just renew their status as a level 1 volunteer. Level 2 applications or level 2 screenings expire every 5 years. An email reminder will be sent 30 days prior to expiration, and you update your application if you wish to renew. If your application expires, your final notification email will include directions on logging in to renew. So again, it's never going to be an instance to where a volunteer should be surprised, because we try to make sure communication is sent so they're aware that their expiration date may be coming up. Contact information. So the Volunteer Services Department, we do have a department that only oversees volunteers. As I stated, Ms. Susan Thorburn is the supervisor for this department. The phone number for questions or any type of concerns is on the screen. That would be the 904-390-2960. And we also have an email box that is dedicated specifically for our volunteers, and that is volunteer@duvalschools.org. Ms. Sharice Richardson is our volunteer support technician. So she mans the volunteer email as well as the volunteer phone line. Now, with the implementation of the level 2 screenings, as you can imagine, there has been a large influx of volunteers seeking to be level 2 screened, which we greatly appreciate. We do appreciate the partnerships, but that has caused us to have a little more staff to assist to ensure we're providing timely customer service to our volunteers. So we do have other team members that are assisting at this time since the implementation is so new. But again, we have multiple ways for our volunteers to be able to reach out to us to answer any questions. And if there is a suggestion or if there is a concern, we welcome everyone to either contact us directly via phone or either utilize that email address. And we have team members manning that at this time, so that way we're able to provide timely answers to your questions, comments, or concerns. So before I move on, I'm going to now transition to determine if there are any questions related to the volunteer process.